Hi, and welcome to Stay Fit with Joy. I'm going to do a recipe today, and I'm going to show you how to make my black bean burgers. So what I did was I pulled up the recipe on my stayfitwithjoy.com website. I went to the recipe section, and I went to the black bean burger, and I'm going to show you how I make them. So first thing that I have to do is take peppers and onions and cut them. So I have a yellow and an orange pepper, and I'm going to put some oil in my pan. I'm going to use canola oil today for this. And this is my little jug that I put my canola oil in, and I get to kind of sprinkle this into the pan. My mom made this for me, so thanks, Mom. I'm going to sprinkle this into the pan. I'm going to put the heat on, let it start to get hot. So my stove is right over here, and I'm just kind of sprinkling that oil in just to get the pan coated with a little bit of that canola oil. And canola oil is a healthy oil, so I use that for most of my cooking, as well as olive oil. But usually when I'm doing some high heat stuff, I will use canola oil, and when I'm doing things like dressings and cold stuff, I'll use the olive oil. And sometimes for roasting or lower heat things, I will use the olive oil because I like the way that flavors my vegetables. So it just kind of depends on what I'm cooking. So the first thing that I want to do is cut up the peppers. So I'm taking both sides off, and then I'm just going to cut around and get as much of that pepper off, and then get rid of the center. And then I'll just rinse these to get any extra seeds off. And what I love about black bean burgers is it's a great protein that is not a meat. If you don't want to eat meat, or if you're vegetarian, it's really good to have different options as far as proteins go. And beans are one of those things that is a good option for protein. The only thing, and I'm not sure if you really know about proteins and quality of proteins, the only thing about beans is that it's not a complete protein, which means that there are a certain amount of essential proteins that our body needs, and some foods are complete and have all of those essential proteins, and some are incomplete, such as beans, that don't have all of the essential proteins. So what you have to do is combine it with another food in order to make it a complete protein. So when it comes to beans, the best thing to do is to have it with something like brown rice, or whole wheat pasta, or whole grain bread, and then that will make that protein be a complete protein. So that's the best thing to do with beans. Is if you're making a black bean burger, you can put it on a whole wheat bun. You can put it over some brown rice. I'm gonna actually make quinoa to eat with this. And the thing about quinoa is one of those whole grains that is actually a complete protein as well. So I'll get some protein with the beans. I'll make it complete with the quinoa, but I'll also have complete protein using the quinoa as well. So it'll be a nice protein-packed meal for me to have both of those. So what I want to do, again, is just chop all of these up in a dice. And these are really good in the summertime. You can put them on the barbecue or pan fry them like I'm doing today. But it just gives you another option other than a hamburger. I get kind of sick of the summer having turkey burgers or hamburgers, and I just feel like I want something with a different flavor. So the black bean burgers really work nice. They give you just a different flavor. And another option, again, for that protein other than meat. And a great option if you're a vegetarian, that you can have options to make these black bean burgers and still feel like you're kind of having some sort of a sandwich or burger. All right, one more piece of pepper, and then I'm going to put these right into the pan. My oil is getting hot, so it should be able to start to cook. Okay, so those are all diced up nice. And another little handy tool from Pampered Chef. Love my Pampered Chef. I'm just going to scoop these up with this and throw them into my pan. You can hear that probably sizzling maybe from where you are. That means my pan is nice and hot. And we're just going to give those a good cook. And then we're going to chop up the onion and do the same thing. Just take the outer shell off, throw all that out. And I cut my onion by cutting it in half, and then I put it sideways, slice it one direction, and then go the other direction, and I get a nice little chop to it. And there we go. Throw those in the pan as well. Okay, so while that's cooking, I'm going to prep my beans and get those ready to just kind of throw those peppers in. So I'm going to take a look at my recipe and see what the next step is. All right, so I do have an egg in the recipe, but you don't have to put an egg in. Actually, a lot of times I don't even put the egg in. So if you're vegan, you can just omit that. I'm gonna omit it because actually I'm out of eggs. So we're gonna do this one without the egg. So what we'll need is some whole wheat flour. We will need to get spices, salt, chili powder, cumin, and red pepper for a little bit of a spice, and the black beans. So I'm gonna go get all that. Okay, rinse and strain the black beans, which I've already done. So I'm just gonna take those black beans and I'm gonna throw them into my bowl. So you wanna take a masher and you wanna just mash up those black beans. You don't want them to be whole. You want to just kind of get them all mashed up. So that's the first step. So you can do this while it's cooking. I'm going to actually, while I'm heating that up, I'm going to start to make my quinoa. So I'm going to grab that. So quinoa is really simple to make. 2 cups of water to 1 cup of the quinoa. So we want to bring the water to a boil. Let's get 2 cups of water. There's our 2 cups of water. We're going to bring that to a boil. You could put salt or other stuff in it. I'm going to just kind of leave it for now. Just make sure we got about a cup here. And that's perfect. So I got a cup I'm going to put in there just about. And all you need to do is bring it to a boil, add the quinoa, reduce it to a simmer, and cover for about 15 minutes until it kind of absorbs the water. Very easy. Okay, so while that's cooking, let's get all the spices we need, which is going to be salt, chili powder. Okay, so we got salt, chili powder. I need cumin and red pepper or cayenne pepper. And I don't know about you, but in my recipes, I don't give you specifics on how much of each spice to use. I kind of leave that up to you. Everybody's taste is different on how much spice or how much flavor you want to put into your food. I make it different every time. It's always tastes different because I always kind of add a little bit here and there. So what I'll do is just put some salt in. I'll put some chili powder in. I'll put some cumin in. I'll put some of that cayenne pepper, and then just kind of mix it up and use it. Some things you can taste this. I don't really taste because it's not really hot and cooked, so just kind of comes out. Sometimes I get a better flavor than others. I don't really measure though, just kind of, you know, it's kind of with love. Whatever you're feeling that day is what you kind of put in it. All right, so we're gonna add 4 tablespoons of flour. And that's just gonna help to kind of bind it all together. And if you use an egg, same thing, it's gonna kind of help to bind it together, but you don't need the egg. They might just be a little bit looser or harder to, they might be not as formed together, but the flour really is what helps the most. So if you don't have the egg, or you're omitting the egg because of vegetarian or vegan purposes, that's fine. All right, so I got the beans and I got the flour all mashed together. Just going to kind of continue to mash it, and then once the peppers and onions are done, I'm going to add that in. I'm going to also mash that together, put the spices in, and then I'm going to make some patties with it. Okay, so my peppers and onions are cooked, and I kind of let them cool a little bit, so here they are. And you want to let them cool a little bit because you're going to be handling this with your hands to make the patties. So you definitely want to let that cool so that you're not handling it with it being super hot and burning your hands. So I didn't let it cool that much. It's still definitely warm, but it's not just off of the heat super hot. So you're just going to put the peppers and onions in with your black bean and flour mixture. And if you have that egg, you can throw that in now, mix it up, throw the egg in. And now I'm just going to add some seasoning to it. We need to give it some flavor. So I'm going to add some chili powder. Just want to get some nice color in there with that chili powder. I'm going to do cumin next. Those are kind of the two components of spices that you use in like Mexican style cooking, taco meat or chili. That's what I use. And then salt, we really want to flavor this out. And I'm going to put enough salt, but not too much, because I can always salt it after I taste it. I can add salt to the top of it, so, or while it's cooking. So that I can always add more. I'd rather put less into my bowl and into my mixture. And then we're going to do some cayenne pepper. So we want to add a little bit of spice to this. It's really going to depend on how much spice do you want as far as what you put in. And I'm just going to kind of mix that all up. And then I'm going to get in there with my hands and make some patties out of it. So now before I actually make the patties, I'm going to take my oil again, I'm going to sprinkle it in my pan, and I'm going to put it in the same exact pan that I just used to make the peppers and onions, so I'm not going to waste a pan. I'm going to use the same thing. Why not? I'm putting the same stuff into it. And then as soon as that pan gets hot, I'm going to make some patties and throw it into the hot oil. All right. So I'm going to kind of get in here and just really push everything together. I mean, you can even refrigerate this and let it cool down, and then it kind of gets a little bit better of a stick to it. So it's getting hot. It's not completely hot yet. So out of the recipe, you should be able to make about 4 patties. If you want to make more, then you just double the recipe. And these work well to refrigerate and heat up the next day. You can heat it up in the microwave. You can heat it back up in a pan in a toaster oven. Very easy to just heat these up. You can freeze them into like little sandwich bags and then take one out, let it defrost for a moment, and then not even defrost all the way, just for a moment so you can take it out of the bag and do the same thing. Just kind of cook it up however you want to cook it up. So if you make more, you can save them, and they're easy to recook. And again, what I like about this is that we have the protein value to it, but you know what, we also have lots of vegetables, and you can do more vegetables. It doesn't have to be just peppers and onions. That's just what I happen to put into mine at the moment, but you can chop up whatever vegetables and put it in. If you want to get more than peppers and onions, or if you don't like peppers, you can do just onions, or you can chop up carrots or zucchini, like whatever you want. So this last patty has less beans and flour and a lot of peppers and onions, so it's having a hard time sticking together. But hopefully as it cooks, it will bind a little bit better. So we'll see if I can get that off. All right. Okay, and what you want to do is really cook it until you have a nice brown on one side. Okay, so you want to just really let it get nice and brown on one side. Then you'll flip it over, kind of press it down a little bit, and let it get nice and fried on the other side. And you want it to just be browned and heated completely through. So I have my quinoa right here, and I'm just going to see how that's doing. All right, it's still kind of absorbing, so we'll leave it. Now, one thing that I like to do is make a little topping, like a drizzle of some sort of salt, some sort of sauce to put on top of my black bean burger, because I'll put it over the quinoa. Sometimes I'll put it over a salad or greens, and then I will put a little bit of a drizzle of something over it. So I am going to do that now. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so I'm gonna make a little drizzle of mayonnaise and sriracha. And that's just gonna drizzle over it. Now this is regular mayonnaise, I'm not even using low fat. Again, I'm not afraid of fat, I just am very cautious about how much that I use. So I will take maybe a tablespoon, and I probably won't even use all of that. And then I'm going to take sriracha and sprinkle that in there, okay, so it looks like that. And then the last thing I'm going to do one more thing, just to give it a little bit more of a kick, and make it also a little bit more watery consistency, is I am going to take a lime and just squeeze that lime juice in there. Not a whole lime, it's like a quarter of a lime. Just a little piece. And then I'm going to mix all that together. So that's the mayo, the sriracha, the lime. And if you have like a low-fat ranch dressing, you can do mayo, ranch, lime, and the sriracha. You can do just the ranch and the sriracha and the lime. I don't have any low-fat ranch. I have regular ranch, but I think the mayo is good enough. I'm not going to add any more fat than I need to. And again, it's not that much, and I'm probably not even going to use all of that. Okay, so I'm not going to, this is just for a tiny little bit of a flavor to add to it. And I'll just kind of drizzle or spread that on the top of my black bean burger. I'll put it over my quinoa, and that will be my complete meal. And I've got two good sources of protein. I have whole grains in the quinoa. I have healthy fat in the canola oil. Mayonnaise, not necessarily a healthy fat, but it's not the worst. You know, it's made with, let's look at mayonnaise, because it's made with soybean oil, water, whole eggs, and egg yolks. You know, so we're talking about things that we eat in our diet anyway. It's not the worst thing in the world. It just is very fattening, so you have to be very, very careful on how much you use. You don't even want, a tablespoon is 10 grams of fat, so you want to kind of stay under that tablespoon when you're eating it. Like if you have half a tablespoon of mayonnaise, 5 grams of fat, not so bad, but it will add a little bit of flavor to your food. Okay, so I'm going to flip these over, press it down. Probably could have left it a little bit longer. That one looks good. Okay, this is the one I was having a little trouble with staying together. So that one will be a little more difficult. I don't know if you can see, but look, they're all nice and browned. So we'll let that sit brown the other side. And I like to just kind of press it down to really flatten it out, smush it together a little bit more, and we'll let that get nice and browned as well. Let's check on that quinoa because we're going to need it soon. It's looking good. It's almost there. We'll be able to have that ready. Good. So the more that you can use whole foods to make things, like I made that little bit of a dressing instead of buying dressing that has way more ingredients in it. I just made something really quick with a little bit of sriracha, a little bit of mayo, and a little bit of lime. And it's a little bit better because the ingredients in those things aren't overwhelming. But I mean, sometimes if you look at a dressing, the ingredients go on forever and there's so much in there. So I just try to stick with as many whole foods or close to whole foods as possible that I can recognize what is in it and not have so many things that I don't recognize being in my food. So I always try to start with as less ingredients as possible, so more whole foods. You know, I cook with oil, either canola oil or olive oil. That's how I get my fat, and none of this has fat in it. The beans don't have any fat. The onions and peppers don't have fat as an ingredient itself, but I've added fat to it with the oil. So that's the only fat that I put in. I'm not starting with fattening stuff. And also with the little bit of mayo that I'll put in. So I am adding fat, but I'm adding healthy, good fat that I know what the ingredients are coming from. It's not bad oils or bad fats or high saturated fats or high cholesterol fats. And again, in moderation. I'm not frying these in a whole lot of oil. I drizzle the pan with it for both the peppers and onions, and I drizzled the pan for when I put the patties in. And same thing with the mayo. I'm going to just use a little bit. Now you can also use plain Greek yogurt and make that same exact thing. It will be a little bit more bitter, but it will still give you a nice little spread to put on. So if you don't like mayo, I know some people just can't stand the sight of mayo. So Greek yogurt works just as good, and it is even a little bit healthier. So you can decide either or. So I'm going to cut up some plum tomato and a little bit of red onion, and I'm going to top that just so we have a nice, fresh, raw ingredient that just gives it a brightness and a flavor. That's just going to go with the heat of that spicy kind of burger. And I don't need much. I'm just a little bit. It's just gonna really brighten up that plate and make it pretty. Okay. So I got my quinoa in the bowl. I'm gonna grab one of my burgers. I'm going to top all of this with my fresh tomato and red onion, and then I'm going to take this and I'm just going to kind of drizzle it right on there. So see, I didn't even use barely that much. So you can see how that looks. Got some quinoa. Got that black bean burger, some fresh tomatoes and red onion, and that nice little sauce drizzled over it. And that is a really powerful meal. Good proteins, good source of fat, vegetables, cooked and uncooked. It's just gonna satisfy me, it's going to be tasty, and I'm gonna get a lot of the nutrient-dense food that I need to put in my system. So try it, enjoy it, hope you love it, and then comment and let me know.